Hello and welcome to Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on MegaPixx Media. Joining me today is Ben Matchett, who is the new Director of Dinos Athletics at the University of Calgary. Thanks for joining us today, Ben.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, you take over this position and, it's been a position many athletic directors have had over the years, such a successful program there. Tell us, first of all, Ben, about your background. How did you come to be to where you are today?
It is a little bit of an interesting story. I kind of fell backwards into it a little bit. As a high school student, we would always come to the Dino Cup volleyball tournament back in the late 90s. So that's the heyday of when UCLA was here all the time and Stanford and TSN was broadcasting that event. So it was a really big deal. And we came with our high school volleyball team 3 years in a row when I was in high school. So fast forward to my first year as a student at the University of Calgary, Dino Cup was happening. So of course I went because it was the one thing that I had kind of associated with the university during my time in high school. And I believe we beat UCLA in the final that year, and it was awesome. The Jack was packed. I thought this was just a really cool experience and something that I like to be part of as part of my student experience. So they actually had made a PA announcement during that game looking for staff. And so I reached out and they brought me on. My first job was actually throwing prizes into the crowd of basketball games, of all things. And I did that for a few years and slowly just, kind of exposed myself to different areas of the business and of the organization, to the point that when I graduated my last year, I did a full-time internship while I was wrapping up school. And then fortuitous timing, our good friend Jack Newman was retiring and wanting to step back from his position after almost 30 years. And I just happened to be looking for a job at the time. And we almost in passing had a conversation about how I would be interested in taking on some of what he was doing. And they hired me full time. I guess I stuck around long enough that they had to find a job for me. And I've really been fortunate to work with some outstanding people over the course of the last 20 years, which is crazy to think that it's been that long. But some outstanding people that have given me opportunities in different areas, from Jack to Ron Wattilla, who's the athletic director that put me into the assistant AD position where I've been for the last 10 years. And now to Dean Werthner for giving me the opportunity as the athletic director. It's been, I absolutely love the work that I do. I love the people that I get to work with every day, and the student athletes are just phenomenal, and they're getting more and more phenomenal every year, and it's fun to be part of it.
For those that don't know, Jack Newman was a longtime sports information director at the university and well known in the community. So Ben, in this role, you come into it at a time where, it's been an interesting year, a year and a bit. I'm sure a lot of people are curious about what's going to happen in the fall with Dinos Athletics. Can you explain where we're at with that in light of the pandemic?
For sure. Yeah, interesting to say the least. I think over the last year and a half, we lost the entire season in 2021. And so, yeah, it's going to be great to be back, but it's also going to look a little different than I think what we're used to from the past. So our league has modified its schedules this year to provide a little bit more flexibility in terms of timing. So they're reducing the number of league games across the board. Travel is reduced quite significantly where that's possible. So in football, where there's only 6 teams, we don't have any choice but to travel 4 provinces, but basketball, volleyball, and soccer won't even leave Alberta during the regular season this year until we get to the playoffs. So that's been a lot of work by a lot of different people across the conference to put that in place, to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for the best possible scenario. Because as we've all learned, the only thing we know about, we know for sure about this virus is that we don't know much about what's coming next. So, I think we're positioned well from that perspective. I think bringing the athletes back is going to be a really significant positive thing for them and for us, obviously. But there's the second pandemic they've referred to around mental health, and I know our athletes have really felt that, where not only have they been pulled away from school and everything else and forced to do everything online, but sport is such a huge part of their lives and has been for probably as long as they can remember. And to have it just totally ripped away, where they may still see their teammates here and there, but the larger athlete community that they've been part of at the university is something that we've heard a lot that they've really missed. So we'll be looking to try to re-engage everybody to the extent that we can, while obviously providing the safest and most secure environment that we can for everyone when they do return to campus.
So a couple of quick sort of technical questions. Is all the sports, will they be back in action this year?
That's certainly our goal. We plan for all of our sports to be back at some level. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just curious about the fan situation. How is that going to unfold for attending games?
Sure. So as it stands right now, if the season were to start tomorrow, we would have no restrictions on fans. So we will follow whatever the provincial guidelines are on that. The university has been pretty clear that they're comfortable with that. Exactly what that looks like still might be some work still to be done. But again, we do have a little bit of extra time here because, the regular season typically would be starting in only about 4 weeks. And we've got a couple more weeks tagged on. So more to come on that. But the intent certainly is that we will be able to allow fans with as few restrictions as possible.
Okay, as you embark on this new role, Ben, what's your vision for athletics at the university?
Sure. Well, I think in the short term, the immediate sort of guiding principles for me is just to get everything back up to the level that we're used to. We've had, in addition to all the athletes been off, it's been a really tough year and a half for our coaches and for our administrative staff. We've had to have some staff reductions. We have quite a few vacant positions right now that we're trying to ramp up and get those bodies in so that we're able to execute what we need to this fall. So the immediate term is just to kind of get back up and running and have some sort of level of stability. But I also think that this is the pandemic and the situation we find ourselves in is really challenging, but it also presents huge opportunities for us to sort of reset. Half of the population of students that are coming to the University of Calgary this fall have not stepped on campus yet, where there's the full 2020 and 2021 incoming freshman classes haven't been here yet. And so it's an opportunity to kind of re-engage with the student body here. And my ultimate vision is to see athletics as a really integral part of the student experience at the university, because we know the power that sport has. We know the incredible tenacity that our student athletes compete with and train with, but also the way that they're able to perform academically too. And we know that can serve as a catalyst for enhancing the culture and the experience across the board with our student body. So for me, that's the number one thing. I think a lot of other pieces will fall out from that. But really integrating ourselves with our campus and creating that environment that I think when we think university and college sport in North America, there's sort of an idea of what that looks like, and we really want to leverage that to the extent that we can here.
Ben, I've been here in Calgary for just over 40 years, right? And ever since I've been here, the Dinos program in basically all sports has been very strong. Right. What would you attribute the success to the university athletics program?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's there's a couple of major factors to that. There's certainly the support from the university from the very beginning of the athletic department, where sort of the vision that was laid down by folks like Dr. Lou Goodwin and Dennis Kadatz, the late Dennis Kadatz, our first athletic director. They really set the foundation for a lot of things in terms of professionalizing the environment and bringing in professional coaches, because we were among the first schools that would do that. And I think that really set the tone, 55 years ago. But as we've grown and developed and evolved over that time, I think that the real thing that sets us apart is the support from our community. The university is certainly supportive, and the student body is a huge piece of it, but we could not do what we do without the support from our alumni and our donor base. And the reality is that there's not enough money in the Canadian university sports system to sustain excellence across the board. And we've only been able to do that because we have such an engaged and generous community out there, largely driven by alumni, but not exclusively. There's a lot of other people in this city, and I think that's the city is a big piece of our success.
Let's talk a little bit about the business aspect of sports. And obviously, as you mentioned, you can't do this without money, right? And even at the Canadian university level, although we're not at the the magnitude of say our cousins or friends down south, but still, can you talk a little bit about the importance and the role that companies and corporations and sponsorship plays in even just keeping university sports alive?
It's hard to overstate the impact that support can have. From the funding of scholarships, which has been a major focus for us over the last 10 or 15 years, where we've raised significant dollars that have been matched by the university to the tune of a total of probably close to $1 million a year over the last 10 years, that goes directly to student athletes to help them defray the costs of attending. And in some ways that's almost an investment by corporations and individuals into the future, because we know we're developing leaders, and we know that the student athletes that we are graduating are entering the workforce with incredible skill sets that they've learned through sport, from time management and teamwork, and the way to balance so many multiple things. We hear all the time that people really want to hire former student athletes because they know they're going to come with that sort of set of skills. So that's been a huge piece for us in the last decade and a half or so, is the amount of scholarship money that's come in. But the other side of it too is that operational costs are not going down. Flights are not getting cheaper. Gas is not getting cheaper, right? Apparel, all these things, the costs keep escalating. And, in the current fiscal reality in the province and with the university, it's harder and harder for the institution to come up with those types of funds. So in order for us to be successful and be sustainable, I mean, that's another goal of mine, is to move us further down the road of sustainability with all of our sports. But we were only where we are because of that support.
Okay. One last thing, and I neglected to ask you before. So what's your actual sports background?
So it's funny. I love sports. My first memory is actually of the Olympics in '88, where I was at Olympic Plaza with my dad when Karen Percy was presented with Canada's first bronze medal of those games. That's the first thing in my life that I can remember, and it was around sport. I was never particularly good at anything. As I said, I played volleyball in high school, but mostly just sat on the bench for that. But I was always around it and always engaged. And I found that, my purpose was maybe not to be the athlete or the one actually there, but on the outside supporting. So, as the scorekeeper or the official or things like that. And I just kind of found a niche with that, and with that created and had opportunities presented to me that have allowed me to get where I am.
Okay, super. Well, thanks very much for joining us today, Ben.
My pleasure, Mario. Thank you.
And we all look forward to the return of Dinos Athletics come the fall. And this has been Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on MegaPixx Media. Joining me today was Ben Matchett, who is the new Director of Dinos Athletics at the University of Calgary. Thanks for joining us today.